Naruto, God-level system author, Blue Water God. Chapter 151 Planting a Binding Curse. According to Madara-sama's plan, Uzumaki reached out and patted Bleach, interrupted him, and then stretched out his hand to point to where Uchiha Kingching was standing. Bleach looked over suspiciously, and immediately jumped up at this sight, because Uchiha Kingching had disappeared. Where did he go? Bleach grabbed the whirlpool and asked. Going to the Uchiha family, Uzumaki said in an indifferent tone. Bleach exploded. Why didn't you tell me? Bleach asked, questioning the whirlpool. He didn't expect that not only whirlpool was unreliable, but even the puppet trick Xiangqian was unreliable, and he ran away alone in a blink of an eye. If he acts indiscriminately, wouldn't it destroy Mr. Madara's plan? Bleach said sadly. It is not easy to open the kaleidoscope writing wheel. Before Bleach came, Uchiha Madara had made a careful plan, just to let Uchiha Ken open the kaleidoscope writing wheel. Why are you still like nothing else? You feel like you're following up. Bleach looked at his whirlpool in a daze, and felt helpless in his heart. How could he have such a clone? It's useless for me to follow, and I can't beat him. Do you still expect the other party to follow your plan? Uchiha sat on the ground leisurely. Bleach gritted his teeth angrily, gave this guy a ruthless look at the whirlpool, and then followed up alone. Uchiha Kingching entered the Uchiha family, then hid in the darkness, and then used illusions to put a ninja of the Uchiha family, and obtained the residence address of Uchiha Ken from his mouth. After getting the information, Uchiha Kingching quickly ran towards Uchiha Ken's residence. He acted according to the action plan planned by Xiangqian. He had to see Uchiha Ken before Bleach and the others, and put the soul-binding spell on his eyes. Uchiha Kingching's speed was very fast, but he came to Uchiha Ken's residence in a moment, and then sneaked in. This residence is very luxurious, and the guards are very strict, and ordinary people really can't sneak in. The residence of the chief elder of the Uchiha family. It would be strange if the guards were not strictly guarded, but these guards were not enough to see in front of Uchiha Kingching, and all the illusions were brought down. Then he swaggered in, and without disturbing anyone, he punched Ken Uchiha, who was awakened, knocked him out, and then carried him around and left. When he came to a remote corner, Uchiha Kingching started to make seals with both hands. He made more than 50 seals in total, and it took more than 10 seconds for Uchiha Kingching to complete the seals. After finishing the seal, a black hook jade mark appeared in Uchiha Kingching's hand, and then Uchiha Kingching kicked Uchiha Ken hard, grabbed the moment when he opened his eyes, and pressed his palm to his eyes. After the black hook jade mark in his hand touched the opponent's eyes, it immediately merged into the opponent's eyes. Uchiha Ken was unaware of it, and hidden in his eyes, waiting to be triggered. Uchiha Ken, who woke up, was stunned. After a long time, Ken Uchiha came back to his senses, looked at the shadow in front of him, and asked cautiously, "Who are you?" Without answering, a fist hit Uchiha Ken's head, and poor Uchiha Ken fainted again. Speaking of Uchiha Ken, Uchiha Kingching used the Shunshu technique to leave the Uchiha family. Sitting on the ground board watching the whirlpool of the night sky, I was startled by the sudden appearance of Uchiha Kingching. Wow, I actually caught the mission target, and I don't know if Madame Madara would be happy or angry if he found out. Uzumaki said in surprise. Madara Uchiha wants a kaleidoscope writing wheel, not Ken Uchiha. If he wants to catch Takeshi Uchiha, Madara Uchiha will not ask Xiangqian for help. Ignoring the whimpering whirlpool, Uchiha Kingching slapped Ken Uchiha with a few big ears. Uchiha Ken, who woke up, shook his head, feeling the burning pain on his face, and was furious in his heart. Looking at the two strange people in front of him, Ken Uchiha shouted, "You dare to attack me? You know who I am, and I can make you die without a burial with a single word." Although many years have passed, the country is easy to change, and the nature is hard to change. Uchiha Ken is still so arrogant. And Bleach, who didn't find Uchiha Kingching after a circle, came back. When he came back, he looked at the mission target, and he looked confused. "My grandfather is the great elder of the Uchiha family, and I am the next Uchiha chief. If you dare to hurt me, there will be no place for you in the entire ninja world." Monthly reading. Uchiha Kingching read an illusion month, and pulled the clamoring Uchiha Ken into the illusion space. In the illusion space, Uchiha Ken experienced the death of his relatives and the crisis of life and death. There are also various tortures. In a word, it is to stimulate his spirit and let him open the kaleidoscope writing wheel. But Uchiha Ken is very firm. He just doesn't turn on the kaleidoscope. "No matter how you torture me, I just don't turn it on." After being tortured until his spirit was about to collapse, Uchiha Ken turned on the kaleidoscope writing wheel. "Ugh, I'm going to kill you all." Uchiha Ken had been tortured and was about to go crazy. Without waiting for Uchiha Ken to activate his kaleidoscope writing wheel ability, Uchiha Kingching dug out his eyes neatly. Uchiha Ken, whose eyes were gouged out, screamed in agony. If it wasn't for Beijuan's remote location, he might have alarmed Konoha's people. "My supreme kaleidoscope, return my kaleidoscope to me." and I will rely on this strongest power to become the patriarch of the Uchiha family. Uchiha Ken stretched out his hand and grabbed it like a lunatic. Uchiha Kingching took out kunai, opened Uchiha Ken's neck. Uchiha Ken's shouting stopped abruptly, clutching his neck and fell to the ground, completely dead. The eyes are for you. The task is completed. Take me away from Konoha. Uchiha Kingching handed a pair of kaleidoscope writing round eyes to Beige. Is it so easy to complete? Beige looked at the kaleidoscope writing wheel in his hand with disbelief. In order to get the kaleidoscope, Madara Uchiha planned for several days. Now that the kaleidoscope is so easy to obtain, this is a bit unrealistic, right? Send me away from Konoha. Oh. Good. I'll send the adults away from Konoha. Beige suppressed the consternation in his heart, and then used the method he used to send Uchiha Kingching out. Vortex must also leave together. Only Uchiha Ken's body was left, quietly waiting to be discovered here. After leaving Konoha, Uchiha Kingching went back, and Beige stared at the kaleidoscope writing wheel in his hand, not knowing what to say. What are you looking at stupidly? I got the kaleidoscope writing wheel and I still don't feel like going back to cross. Use Umakage pushed Beige, and then use the Mayfly technique to merge into the earth. Beige shook his head, and then used the Mayfly technique to leave. Chapter 152 The Bird in the Cage. In the deep underground cave, Madara Uchiha was holding a kaleidoscope and writing round eyes, not knowing what he was thinking. Beige, you said that Haixianchen's illusion made Uchiha Ken open the kaleidoscope writing wheel. Uchiha Madara asked with a frown. That's right, it is indeed an illusion. So Ken Uchiha opened his eyes. Madara-sama, it seems that Haixianchen has the method to open the kaleidoscope writing wheel. It doesn't matter, just put on your eyes and talk about it. Madara Uchiha stretched out his hand and buttoned his eyes, without frowning, and then placed the kaleidoscope in the eye sockets, and the transplant of the eyes was completed in an instant. Opening his eyes and feeling the pupil power, Madara Uchiha also showed a smile on the corner of his mouth. Amaterasu. A pitch-black flame appeared in the air and burned violently, but the black flame was extinguished by Uchiha Madara for a moment. Amaterasu and Kick to life. One is the black flame that releases the strongest attack, and the other controls the black flame. It's perfect. Uchiha Madara was very satisfied with the pupil technique of the pair of kaleidoscopes. After Uchiha Madara released Amaterasu and Kick to life, the hook jade spell hidden in the kaleidoscope writing wheel was touched. The Guru spell suddenly sank into the depths of Uchiha Madara's soul, and then suddenly dispersed, turning into a pitch-black thread, shrouding Uchiha Madara's soul. And Madara Uchiha also felt the change in the depths of 387's soul, and he was shocked. But after Uchiha Madara felt it, it was too late. Uchiha Madara has now become a fish in a net and a bird in a cage, and he can't get rid of it at all. Haixianchen. Uchiha Madara roared with his eyes devoured. With Madara Uchiha's intelligence, how could he not know that he was being calculated? Madara Uchiha had just aroused in his heart that he wanted to slash Hyuga Tatsu by 1,000 swords, and his soul was suffering from the pain of being cut by 1,000 swords. The dark silk threads turned into sharp knives and slashed across Uchiha Madara's soul, making Uchiha Madara's life worse than death. The pain in the soul is hundreds of times more painful than the pain in the body. Even a strong-willed person like Madara Uchiha cannot bear such pain. After a long time, the pain disappeared. Uchiha Madara's eyes were congested, his head was full of cold sweat, he was breathing heavily, and he looked embarrassed. Madara Uchiha's appearance frightened Beige next to him. Lord Madara, what are you? Beige asked cautiously. Haixianchen. Madara Uchiha, who was about to be ruthless, screamed again before he finished speaking. The pain this time was several times stronger than the last time. Uchiha Madara shed blood and tears in his eyes, and blood continued to flow from his ears. After the pain disappeared again, Madara Uchiha gasped, unable to speak. After experiencing it twice, Madara Uchiha also wanted to understand, forcibly suppressed the hatred for Haixianchen in his heart, and stopped thinking about anything about Haixianchen. Lord Madara, Beige shouted again cautiously. Beige, leave first. Uchiha Madara waved to Beige immediately. He didn't want others to see him in such a miserable state. After Beige left, Madara Uchiha began to try to clear the black lines in his soul, but those black lines were extremely strong, and forcibly breaking free would cause his soul to collapse. Madara Uchiha didn't do much research on the soul, so he didn't dare to move around. He was afraid that he would kill himself. You have to find a way to get rid of this ghost, otherwise I will always be in the hands of Haixianchen, waiting for me to get rid of this. Uchiha Madara didn't dare to think anymore. Haixianchen, far away in the land of water, had a smile on the corner of his mouth, and Haixianchen could also feel the moment when the soul-binding curse was activated. The fish has entered the net. Whether you can break free from this net in the future depends on your own ability, Master Ban, Haixianchen said softly. After that, Haixianchen didn't think about this anymore. Anyway, the current Uchiha Madara could never break free of the seal, and Xianchen didn't even think about it. Seeing Mikoto washing dishes in the kitchen, Xianchen walked over with her hands and feet. Now that Mikoto is alone in the entire villa, it is a good opportunity to start with Mikoto. As for Kushina and Conan, they have been abducted by Tsunade. Because Tsunade was unbearable for the past few days, he couldn't hold on anymore, so before Xianchen could speak, Tsunade volunteered to help, looking for someone who could share the firepower for him. Mikoto, Sun Xianchen said suddenly, hugging Mikoto's waist behind him. Mikoto was taken aback, and the plate in her hand almost shattered. He turned his head and gave Xianchen a beautiful white eye, and then opened his salty pig hands. Don't make trouble, I'm doing the dishes now. Don't disturb me for now. The bowl can be washed anytime. If you miss such a good opportunity, you will have to wait for the next one. Xianchen hugged Mikoto and didn't let go. What chance? Mikoto asked suspiciously. Of course it's your chance. Xianchen didn't wait for Mikoto to speak, reached out and twisted Mikoto's body, and then went up. At first, Mikoto struggled symbolically, but she quickly became immersed and lost in it. After a long time, Xianchen let go of Mikoto. Mikoto blushed, and her clothes were a little messy. At first glance, she knew that Xianchen was more than just kissing when Mikoto. Xianchen called softly. Huh? Mikoto was a little confused. Are you comfortable just now? Mikoto looked at Xianchen's smirking face, raised her small fist, and slapped Xianchen's thick chest shyly, asking such a question. Didn't she know how shy she was in her heart? Xianchen reached out and grabbed Mikoto's two small hands, and went up again. Mikoto, now wearing an apron, has a unique charm, which is very attractive to Xianchen, Mishaong and so on. Mikoto, I want to eat you. Are you willing? Xianchen leaned against Mikoto's fair neck and breathed softly. Mikoto felt that her neck was tingling and itching, and her body was slightly different. Her strength seemed to be drained, and she didn't want to get up when she was lying on Xianchen's body. Listening to Xianchen's question, Mikoto didn't answer, lying in Xianchen's arms, her eyes blurred, as if she was drunk. If you don't answer, is that the default? Bastard, you have to be nice to me in the future. Mikoto murmured. Of course, you are my good wife and beautiful cook. I'm not good to you and others. Xianchen assured, at the same time secretly delighted. If Mikoto didn't agree, Xianchen wouldn't force Mikoto. Now that Mikoto agreed, it would be even better. Mikoto smiled sweetly, and buried her head in Xianchen's arms again. Xianchen hugged Mikoto and walked towards the bedroom. Mikoto put her arms around Xianchen's neck, feeling both shy and excited. In fact, Mikoto was very envious of Tsunade's woman who became Xianchen first, and she was even a little jealous, but now she was going to completely become Xianchen's woman, and she was very excited. Chapter 153 Mikoto. When she came to the bedroom, Mikoto kept her eyes closed, her eyelashes kept fluttering, and her heart rate kept rising, which made people know at a glance that she was nervous. Mikoto, you seem very nervous. Xianchen hugged Mikoto and said softly. I'm not nervous, Mikoto said in a slightly trembling voice. Although I knew this day would come, and I was ready for it, I still started to feel nervous in my heart. It was the first time that you experienced this kind of thing, and you let Mikoto treat her calmly. It was simply impossible. Xianchen smiled slightly, holding Mikoto without moving. The afterglow of the setting sun shone on the two of them, covering them with a golden brilliance, like a golden boy and a girl. Let's forget it first. After you're ready, Mikoto, wheel. Mikoto shook her head vigorously, interrupting the words behind Hyuga Datsu. No, I'm already behind Tsunade's sister. I don't want to be behind Kushina. Mikoto gradually calmed down as she spoke, her eyes flashing with determination. Although she and Kushina are good sisters, it doesn't mean that Mikoto wants to be behind her in this matter. Even Mikoto regretted that if she didn't run that day, would she have replaced Tsunade's sister and become the first woman of Xianchen. It's a pity that there is no regret for selling medicine in the world, but Mikoto will not give up the second position, so she can only say sorry to Kushina. Seeing the firm Mikoto, Xianchen bowed his head and went down. He just liked Mikoto's soft-spoken character. Facing Xianchen's kiss, Mikoto also closed her eyes and responded. After a long time, Xianchen finally let go of Mikoto. Mikoto gasped. Her face was extremely rosy, just like drinking wine. She looked at Xianchen dazedly. Seeing the smirk on Xianchen's face, Mikoto felt very shy and blushed, so she could only hide her shyness by burying her head in the quilt. Seeing Mikoto's beautiful face, Xianchen felt even more excited. The shy Mikoto had a different kind of beauty. Xianchen's gaze made Makin's cheeks flush red, and she felt a deep sense of shame. She glanced at Xianchen angrily, and then buried her head in Xianchen's arms. Mikoto's shy face is very beautiful, like a shy fairy. Xianchen just looked at Mikoto, and her heart was full of unstoppable blood. Originally, Xianchen couldn't bear it anymore, but now seeing Mikoto's beautiful appearance, if Xianchen could bear it, she was either a homosexual or a eunuch. Seeing the shy Mikoto, Ruxianchan jumped up. Mikoto snorted softly, then quickly covered her Zue. Ruxianchan looked at Mikoto, who was holding her Zue, and smiled slightly, feeling that Mikoto's appearance was very cute. Chen, you big villain, you know how to bully others. Mikoto slapped Ruxianchan a little angrily. Since you said I'm a bad guy, if I wasn't bad, wouldn't I be sorry for the name you gave me? Ruxianchan said with a wicked smile. HMPH, big bad boy, are you doing the same to Sister Tsunade? Mikoto said with a bit of jealousy. Her little Zue pouting a little cute. You're still jealous. Ruxianchan squeezed Mikoto's nose lightly and said amusingly. HMPH, how can you not be jealous? Mikoto snorted softly, took Ruxianchan's hand away, and said in a low voice. Although Mikoto's voice was very low, Ruxianchan could still hear it, rubbing Mikoto's hair lightly without saying anything. It's normal for Mikoto to be jealous. If she's not jealous, it means she doesn't care about you at all. Ruxianchan chuckled, looked directly into Mikoto's eyes, and said softly, Mikoto, you are so cute right now, I really love you. Ruxianchan's words are not only to change the subject, but also to speak from the heart. Mikoto looked at Ruxianchan's tender eyes, and there was a hint of sweetness in her heart, as if she had eaten honey, and the jealousy in her heart disappeared. Mikoto, are you ready? Ruxianchan looked directly into Mikoto's eyes gently, and asked Mikoto softly. Yeah, I'm ready, Mikoto said, clutching the sheets tightly with both hands. Although she said she was ready, Mikoto was extremely nervous right now. With a cry of pain, a line of clear tears flowed from Mikoto's eyes. These were tears of pain and tears of joy. She finally became a woman of Chen. Seeing Mikoto with frowning eyebrows, Ruxianchan didn't dare to make too much movement, waiting for Mikoto's pain to ease. After a long time, Mikoto's eyebrows stretched out, and she looked at Ruxianchan, who was suffering so much, with a distressed and happy smile in her eyes. Okay, Mikoto said softly. Ruxianchan, like a soldier who received an order, started his own actions. This battle was dizzying, the sun and the moon were dark, and Mikoto was just a new recruit, so naturally she was no longer Ruxianchan's opponent, and she was quickly defeated. Looking at Ruxianchan, Mikoto's eyes flashed with tears, as if she would cry at any time. Chen, am I so useless? Mikoto looked at Ruxianchan with a slightly weeping voice, and felt extremely remorse in her heart. In Mikoto's view, being unable to satisfy her lover is the greatest dereliction of duty as a wife. It's okay. Ruxianchan quickly comforted Mikoto, otherwise Mikoto would cry. Under Ruxianchan's comfort, Mikoto stopped complaining, and said to Ruxianchan, why don't you go find Sister Tsunade? In fact, Mikoto, who said this, was very jealous in her heart, but who made her not live up to her expectations and couldn't satisfy Ruxianchan. Ruxianchan shook his head and said, tonight belongs to the two of us. Then what should I do? I can't let you hold back. You should go to Sister Tsunade. Ruxianchan gave a wicked smile, and suddenly said something in Mikoto's ear. Mikoto's face flushed, and she gave Ruxianchan a shy look, blushing about to drip blood. But in the end, the shy Mikoto still did as Ruxianchan said because she felt bad for Ruxianchan. In short, Ruxianchan felt very comfortable, not only physically, but more importantly, mentally, and felt a great sense of accomplishment. After a long time, Ruxianchan vented their flames in his heart, and the whole person was refreshed. Mikoto glared at Ruxianchan again, coughed a few times, rolled her eyes at Ruxianchan, and then quickly ran to the bathroom. Ruxianchan had an embarrassed look on his face, because he was too excited, so he understood without saying anything later. After getting up and going to the bathroom, Ruxianchan hugged Mikoto to wash, and then fell asleep with Mikoto in his arms. Ruxianchan and Mikoto are sleeping soundly now, but some people are about to lose sleep, such as Kushina, who is gnashing his teeth in the room and scolding Ruxianchan. Chapter 154, Kushina preparing for a night attack. Early the next morning, Kushina knocked on the door. Ruxianchan opened his eyes helplessly, glanced at Mikoto who was asleep, got up and opened the door. I said Juxanai, why did you come knocking on the door if you didn't sleep early in the morning? Ruxianchan said unhappily. Humphrey. Kushina snorted coldly, then turned to leave. Kushina was very angry, very angry. She went out to play with Tsunade and Conan for a while, and when she came back, she couldn't find Mikoto and Ruxianchan, and then she heard the wheezing in Ruxianchan's bedroom. Don't you know what this voice represents, Kushina? It's okay to be behind Tsunade's sister, but she didn't expect Mikoto to walk in front of her, which made her very uncomfortable, and in a word, she was jealous. Ruxianchan glanced at Kushina helplessly, then closed the door gently and chased after Kushina. Hearing the footsteps behind, Kushina was secretly happy, but she didn't show it, but said coldly, what are you doing after catching up? Don't go to sleep with Mikoto. For the sake of this, if Ruxianchan didn't know that Kushina was jealous, then there was something wrong with his head. You're jealous? Do you want me to sleep with you too? Ruxianchan stepped forward quickly, put his arms around Kushina on the sofa and said, "Bah, who wants you to sleep with me? I don't want to sleep with a stinky man like you," Kushina said proudly. Seeing Kushina's arrogance, Rixianchin laughed. When Juxinai saw Rixianchin laughing, she was instantly annoyed, and she used a biting technique on Rixianchin, biting Rixianchin's arm but did not let go. Kushina, who didn't bite after biting for a long time, angrily beat his chest with a small fist. "You big villain. Big pervert, you actually harmed Mikoto while I was away. I want to avenge Mikoto, die. Big villain," Kushina shouted while beating. In fact, Kushina is just venting her anger now, and she regrets going out with Tsunade, and actually letting the Rixianchin take the opportunity to eat Mikoto. "Or I will harm you today," Rixianchin said with a smile. "Humphrey," Kushina hummed, surprisingly did not refute. "You and Tsunade's sister have discussed it," Kushina said, although she was a little nervous. But that didn't mean she was an idiot. "I didn't expect that little stupid girl was still smart." Rixianchin looked at Juxinai in surprise. "Who are you calling a stupid girl?" Juxinai showed her teeth and claws, like an angry lioness. "Of course I'm not talking about the extremely smart Juxinai. You are so smart, how could you be a stupid girl?" Rixianchin waved his hands to the angry Juxinai. "HMPH, you're acquainted." Kushina folded her arms in her chest and put on a proud gesture. The time was spent chatting, and soon Tsunade and Conan were up, but Mikoto, who always woke up early, was surprisingly lazy. Mikoto was too tired yesterday and is still resting, so she can only let Xiaonan make breakfast. Because Xianchin was lazy, Tsunade and Kushina were afraid that the kitchen would be overturned, so they could only let Xiaonan make breakfast. "Sister Tsunade, tell me what happened yesterday." Kushina had a sneer on her face, looking like she was asking for guilt. "Ahaha. Well, I think it's not good to let Xiaonan cook by himself. Juxinai, talk to Chen." "I'll go and help." Tsunade let out a ha-ha, then turned and ran to the kitchen. Kushina could only look at Tsunade's back angrily. Even while eating, Kushina was still angry. After Xianchin finished eating, he comforted Kushina, and then returned to the room with a breakfast. Mikoto hadn't eaten yet. "Kushina, it's useless for you to be angry with me." Tsunade looked at Kushina, who glared at him, and said helplessly, "Everything has already happened, and it is useless for Kushina to be angry." "Why didn't you trick Mikoto out to play?" Kushina asked angrily. "Who can blame this? Only you can blame you for being playful." Tsunade spread his hands. "Damn." Kushina's cheeks bulged. "How about I give you a chance to let you?" "No need. Do I need someone else to give me a chance, Kushina?" Kushina said with fighting spirit burning in her eyes. "Then what are you going to do?" Tsunade asked curiously. "HMPH, I'm going to go to the night raid tonight. Don't ruin my good deeds." Juxinai's eyes flashed, full of fighting spirit. "Ah, you are so bold." Tsunade looked at Kushina with admiration. She would never be able to do a night attack anyway. "If you weren't bold, wouldn't you have been following behind you all the time?" Kushina said rather jealously. Rixianchin didn't know that Kushina was planning to attack him at night. If he knew, he would definitely open the door to welcome Kushina to attack him at night. When Rixianchin returned to the room, Mikoto had already woken up, but her face was flushed, and she was too embarrassed to go out. Mikoto was startled when she heard the door open, and she was relieved to see that it was Rixianchin who came in. "How can it be the same as being a thief?" Rixianchin teased with a smile. Mikoto gave Rixianchin a cute roll of eyes. "Isn't she shy?" "Now that you're up, do you still need me to feed you?" Mikoto shook her head, picked up a rice ball and took a light bite. She was really hungry now. Yesterday's strenuous exercise consumed a lot, and now her stomach is growling. After Mikoto finished her breakfast, Rixianchin grabbed her hand and walked outside. Mikoto quickly broke free from Rixianchin's hand. "I'm a little embarrassed about that, but don't go out for the time being." Mikoto looked at Rixianchin with her big beautiful eyes. "You can't stay in the house all the time." "What's so shy about this kind of thing? It's your own anyway." Rixianchin ignored Mikoto's objection, reached out and hugged the shy Mikoto and walked outside. Mikoto quickly buried her head in Rixianchin's arms. "Mikoto, we agreed to be together, yet you dare to sneak away." Rixianchin was stunned. Hearing the words that seemed to contain a lot of information, he felt that he seemed to have missed something. Rixianchin suddenly regretted that he wanted to hit the wall, and knew that Tsunade would not let Kushina take Kushina out. Mikoto shyly glared at Kushina. Why did Kushina say anything? She was embarrassed at first, and now she is even more embarrassed. "Still staring at me? I haven't investigated you for running away yet," Kushina said ruthlessly, and Kushina still had a lot of resentment in her heart for Mikoto running ahead of her. Mikoto blushed even more upon hearing this. "Okay Kushina, Mikoto is very shy now, so don't say that." Tsunade reached out and grabbed Kushina. "Mikoto, why is your skin so smooth? You can compare to that guy Chen." Kushina touched Mikoto's arm and said suddenly. "Really?" Mikoto said shyly. Chapter 155, It's Really Night Attack. Afterwards, the girls got together and started to discuss skincare issues. Even the shy Mikoto was not shy and joined the discussion. Instead, Rixianchin was pushed out, and he was driven away on the grounds that it was a girl's topic. Xianchen was extremely indignant at the behavior of several women, and said that he would teach them a good lesson in bed and let them know what a husband is. The indignant Xianchen walked out of the villa, went to the beach, and began to study how to fuse the tailed beast chakra into 10-tailed chakra. According to common sense, 9-tailed beasts are all chakras separated by 10 tails. It should be easy to merge into 10-tailed chakras. Why is it so difficult now? Xianchen was sitting by the sea, watching the waves rise and fall in the sea, very puzzled in his heart. He thought that it would be difficult to integrate 10-tails chakra with immortal chakra and yin-yang escape, but he didn't expect that 10-tails chakra would stump him. It's really a headache. Xianchen lay on the beach annoyed. Reality and imagination are completely different things. Do you need a 10-tailed body outside a golem if you want to get 12 to 10-tailed chakras? If that's the case, then go grab the outsider golem. No. It's here. In fact, it is not difficult for Xianchen to enter the 6th Dao level, but Xianchen has great ambitions. He wants to step into the peak of the 6th Dao and even surpass the 6th Dao level in one fell swoop. Come slowly. Anyway, my current strength is enough to deal with all enemies, not to mention the golden finger of the system. Although the system has not been bubbling for more than 5 years, Xianchen will not forget the system. That is his biggest golden finger. After the system is upgraded, I must complain about it. It's so irresponsible that I haven't shown my face for 5 years. Xianchen muttered to himself. In fact, it's all a joke. Xianchen is still very satisfied with his system. Compared with those systems that release tasks every day and obliterate the host at every turn, his system is simply the most conscientious system. No one. Xianchen got a lot of abilities in the system, but he didn't pay anything. It was all given by the system. After lying on the beach for a long time, Xianchen used Vientiane Anian to catch a crab a few meters in the sea and prepared it for today's lunch. If it was a previous life, Xianchen couldn't believe that there would be such a big crab, but this is Naruto world. Such a big crab is not uncommon. Even bigger Xianchen has seen it. Wow. Big crab. It would be great if there were still octopuses, just to have a barbecue and make octopus balls. Kushina looked at Xianchen. Since Princess Juxinai wants to eat octopus, then the subordinates will naturally help Princess Juxinai catch it. Xianchen said seriously. PFFT Kushina and the others laughed out loud. If Xianchen wants to catch fish, it will not be troublesome. There is a Vientiane Anian, and you can choose from all kinds of fish. You are too perfunctory. Only the fish you catch yourself are the best. Kushina said dissatisfied. Really? I heard that what you make yourself is the best food. Kushina, do you want to eat what you make yourself? Xianchen said with a teasing. Kushina was at a loss for words. What kind of food she cooked herself? She herself was very hard to count, and after eating it, it was estimated that Tsunade could not be rescued. Mikoto and Xiaonan were in charge of doing it. Xianchen also ran over to help, while Tsunade and Kushina were only in charge of eating. After 10 o'clock in the evening, Xianchen was bored in bed, unable to sleep. Just when Xianchen closed his eyes and thought about things, a sound outside alarmed him. Juxin, I didn't sleep this night. What are you doing sneakily? Xianchen whispered suspiciously. Then Xianchen closed his eyes. His breathing became very steady, as if he was really asleep. He really wanted to see what Kushina was doing. Kushina cautiously, sneakily pushed open the door of Xianchen, and then gently closed the door. Taking advantage of the bright moonlight, looking at Xianchen's handsome face, Juxinai's little face flushed slightly. Then he walked to the head of the bed, staring closely at Xianchen's sleeping face, with a silly smile on his face. He looked at Xianchen with a smirk like this, and it wasn't until a long time later that he regained his senses, and then kissed Xianchen. When Kushina kissed her, Xianchen opened her eyes suddenly, reached out to hug Kushina, and went up to Kushina's soft red lips. Kushina's eyes widened, and her eyes were full of disbelief. She didn't expect Xianchen to be awake. However, her thoughts didn't last long, and she got lost in it. Isn't that why she came to Xianchen's room at night? After a long time, after Xianchen and Juxinai separated, Juxinai reached out and hit Xianchen angrily. You bastard, it's really abominable to pretend to be asleep and lie to me. Is it your own stupidity? Do you think your clumsy actions can sneak into a ninja's room without being discovered? Xianchen complained. As far as Kushina's action is concerned, even a ninja can find it, but she is not aware of it. I didn't expect you, Kushina, to be so bold and dare to attack me at night. Xianchen hugged Kushina's delicate body and said with a smile. Humphrey, why don't I, Kushina, dare not? Kushina said proudly. Since you're here, then don't leave. It just happened that I didn't want to sleep in the long night. I didn't expect a beautiful woman to recommend a pillow seat. My charm is really extraordinary. Beautiful. Juxinai smiled and hit Xianchen. What stinky beauty, am I not handsome? Kushina, don't speak against your conscience. Xianchen approached Kushina and said. You're not handsome, you're ugly. It's an honor for this girl to see you. Kushina turned her head arrogantly to hide the red rime on her face. It's really outrageous to say that your man is ugly. Let's see how I teach you, Xianchen said angrily. You dare? Why don't I dare? Xianchen turned over and pressed Kushina under him, looking directly at Kushina with deep eyes. Hum hum hum. You little white sheep are really bold. You dare to run into the wolf's den. It's time for you to know the price. Don't be complacent. Today I will fight a vicious wolf from Kushina to subdue you, a pervert, lest you endanger innocent girls. Kushina shouted righteously. I didn't expect you to be so great, Kushina, so let's see how powerful a pervert I am, or your little white sheep to counterattack. Then you won't ask for mercy, Xianchen said with a big smile. Begging for mercy? It's you who is begging for mercy, Kushina said very stubbornly. How could she beg for mercy? Very good, Kushina. I hope you can show such a backbone in the future. I really appreciate a girl with a backbone, Xianchen said with a smile. If you like this audiobook, subscribe the channel for more videos like this. Leave some comment and let me know if you guys like this story, or you have a web novel you like and want to hear its audiobook. I will be happy to create them for you. Please like, share, and leave a comment on the video.